Well, hello everyone, and welcome to DiCAN's Fleet Street webinar series. My name is Lisa Setti, and I'm the Director of Marketing here at DiCAN and your host for today. Thanks for joining us, virtually that is, and we want to welcome everyone to the webinar. Our topic for today is why consumer navigation apps are failing trucking fleets. Commercial maps are truly a bridge to safety and efficiency. And today we have our guest host here from Trimble Maps, and we're going to talk about an amazing product that they have called CoPilot. I want to introduce you all to Matthew. Matthew is the Business Development Manager at Trimble, and he's my fellow Italian compadre there, my soccer fan on the other side of the computer. So everyone meet Matthew. He is our resident expert at Trimble Maps. He's been at Trimble for, gosh, like 7, 8 years, something like that, Matt. So he's the right guy to take us through this presentation today. He is a great guy. He has a genuine interest in helping our industry do better. And you'll see today just how. I mean, he has some amazing insight. And he's going to take you through a presentation today, which will truly give you a bit of a new perspective and a competitive advantage, I feel, within the industry. So without further ado, I want to invite Matt to take over the mouse here, and we'll get started.
Great. Thank you for that, Lisa. And thanks to the DiCAN team, Lucy, and everyone over there. I really do appreciate giving the opportunity to sit down with everyone here and kind of go over and show what we can do on our end here at Trimble Maps. So my plan for today is to kind of go over, like Lisa said, go over our CoPilot product, and not only what CoPilot does, but what sets us different and apart from other providers, whether they're other commercial navigation applications, or maybe it's just your standard navigation like a Google Maps or something some users are using, even though they really shouldn't be going into and using those within commercial navigation. But first, just a quick intro on myself. So my name's Matt Santor-Sierra. Like Lisa said, I've been with Trimble Maps for 8 years. You might be familiar with Trimble Maps' products, PC Miler, CoPilot, Milon, and I've worked with all those products over the years. Right now, I work on our telematics team. So one of my main roles and responsibilities is working with DiCAN and helping them to not only make sure CoPilot's doing everything that we say it does, but making sure customers like you have access to it, can give it a try, and make sure that it's the right solution for your fleet. So a little background on everything Trimble Maps. The first thing I do have to say, though, so since we are a corporate entity, I do have to say quickly that as a safe harbor, if I say any dates or anything along those lines, you can't come and hunt me down and say, hey, you're late by a couple of weeks here. So I don't think we're going to really get into anything too crazy today. We're going to be mostly talking about features that we have and that are already existing in the program. So, but, you know, got to keep corporate happy. So there we are. So first, Trimble Maps is a division of Trimble. Some of you might be familiar with Trimble, some of you might not be, but our Trimble Maps division is responsible for all things that maps, whether it's routing, miles, distance calculations, drive times calculations. We develop tools and products that other companies can use within that routing and mapping solutions for commercial vehicles. We're headquartered in Princeton, New Jersey. That's my home office. I actually live a little bit closer to Philadelphia, and obviously I'm working from home now. But we also have large offices in Oklahoma City, London, Chennai, India, as well as a lot of more satellite offices throughout the globe. And that's just Trimble Maps. Trimble in general has even more locations than that spread all across the globe. So let's get into commercial navigation. So you guys all have fleets. You all operate fleets in some capacity. And these little images here are all things that kind of just show what a driver has to go through on his day-to-day. They're not drivers in our field, in our industry. They're not your average driver. We wouldn't put anyone who is driving a normal vehicle behind an 18-wheeler unless they were trained properly. And that's mostly because of all the extra responsibilities you need to worry about, whether it's things like hazmat or worrying about if that bridge ahead is too tall or if they're too heavy for it, making sure you're getting to your right exit, making sure that when you do get to your location, that you're actually put to the right part of that location and not maybe the front door that your vehicle can't fit in. And also incredibly importantly, that image on the top left, which is something I hope none of you have had to deal with, but maybe you've had, is bridge strikes and avoiding them. The drivers have a lot of things that they need to worry about. And here at Trimble Maps, we focus on a couple things. We focus on not only the efficiency and trying to make sure that your vehicles are going where they need to go, when they need to be there, and with as least amount of missed turns possible. But we also want to make sure the drivers are getting home safe and that the drivers feel comfortable in the cab and that they can go through their workday as easy as possible, and that we can take care of some of these problems that they have to think about and constantly focus on off their plate so that they can focus on what professional drivers should be focusing on, and that's driving. So I don't want to get into the numbers way too much here. Again, this is a situation I hope none of you have had to deal with, or maybe a few of you have, and you know the headaches. Bridge strikes and just dangerous situations in general are something that's just a growing concern, especially now as we are going through the driver shortage. We might be, maybe you're onboarding drivers who are just getting out of their CDL training programs or are just getting into a cab for the first time. These are the drivers that we need to help the most because they might not be as educated. And on top of that, also your expert drivers, as roads change or as new routes come up, we still need to educate them on what these locations of danger might be. So bridge strikes are something that happen all around the country, all around the industry, all around the globe, and we want to prevent as many of those as possible. On top of that, the financial aspects of that, those bridge strikes are astronomical. Just from the small amount of having a couple $1,000 fine for going on a restricted roadway can instantly jump up to $1 million situation if there's an injury involved. So these are all things that we want to prevent, and we want to use CoPilot's power to help you make the correct decision and to prevent these situations from happening as much as possible. I come from a driver household. My dad's a driver. I had a CDL at one point, not that I really used it much, admittedly. My uncle's a driver, and I also had my own fleet for a couple years out of school. So this is something that I'm passionate about because when I had my fleet, the drivers in cab were my friends and my family, and I would want them to get home safe and comfortable and making sure that they are feeling comfortable in the cab. And that's kind of why I am so passionate about this product specifically. So firstly, navigation, it's a tool for the drivers. So the drivers are the ones that are actually out there doing the work. They're the ones that have to use this tool. So we can't give them a tool that is super complex because not all drivers are technically savvy. Like I said, my dad's a driver. I know he's not technically savvy. I still have to explain just, sending text messages to him. So let alone giving him an application that he has to do a lot of customization and takes really a lot of time for him to learn and control. It's not going to work here because they're not going to use it. The drivers aren't going to use a tool that's too hard and complex to use. And they need to realize quickly that the tool that you're providing them is a tool that they can get a lot of resources and help out of as quickly as possible. Navigation is also a tool for you guys as the fleets. And that's for a couple of reasons. Firstly, yes, you do want to keep your drivers safe. You want to keep your drivers efficient. When the drivers are safe, they're happier. When the drivers are efficient, the fleets are happier. The less amount of missed turns you make, the less amount of out of route miles, the less amount of time wasted waiting for a vehicle to show up to the depot that was supposed to be there, but maybe was delayed, all cost time and cost money. So if we can build the tools that not only keep the drivers happy, but also keep your fleet as efficient as possible to help your bottom line, then everybody wins. The driver wins, you win, and also, every other company out there wins because you're also driving safe. So today I kind of want to focus on a couple reasons why CoPilot is the correct product for a trucking commercial operation. The first thing, and these, you don't have to worry about these now. We're going to get into each individual one as we go. But I just want to focus on some of these top 5, but this is just a starting point. I welcome anyone that if they have any questions, like they said, put these in the chat. If you have any questions on some of the details that are on this slide, just go ahead and put in a question when we get there, because I'll be happy to dive in. This is just going to be a quick overview. Don't want to bore you too much, but I'll be happy to get into the details and the nitty-gritty parts of it with you guys as well after. So the first one is controlling the navigation settings for your fleet. So we understand that fleets are just that. They're fleets. They're not an owner operator. They're not just one guy or one girl getting into a cab and starting off their day. It's a lot bigger than that. So to ensure the consistency across your fleet, we allow you to create all of your vehicle profiles. So that's your heights, your weights, your widths. If your vehicles are going to be running hazmat or not. If you want to avoid tolls, if your vehicles are able to come into the United States and cross the border. We can take all these settings and control them from the back office so that your drivers don't even have to worry about them. This does a couple things for you. Firstly, this allows you to have complete control of your fleet. You can control and make sure that all of your vehicle profiles match exactly to what you're expecting what your drivers to use. So that's taking account for those toll roads that you might want to avoid, or maybe some of those your vehicles that are hazmat. You want to make sure your hazmat drivers are actually using a hazmat profile and aren't going into tunnels or under bridges they're not supposed to because they're running that hazmat. And we can also, by running this from the back end, and you as the admin or someone from your team as an admin managing this all, you don't have to worry about the drivers just entering in wrong information or, having a fat finger and typing in the wrong number. Everything can be managed and controlled from your back office. Your drivers don't have to worry about it, and they can just get into their cab and just drive. It also lets you regulate your road preferences. So, if there is that section of road that you want to avoid, if there is that bridge or that tunnel that you want your drivers to not go through, maybe you have a deal with the local municipality that you're not going to send your roads down their main street. Whatever it is, we allow you to control those preferences so that your navigation isn't just some out-of-the-box navigation that you get. It's actually customized to your exact fleet so that you can get all of the extra benefits out of it. And you're not just using something that we think it works best for a blanket all commercial vehicles and all commercial drivers. The second thing is using our commercial data and the verified nature of that data to make decisions based on the final mile and getting extra details to your drivers. So one of my situations that I always run to with fleets is, sometimes you get to a location, but that location that you are navigated to is the front door of the building. And that might work if you're the mail deliverer, or if you are driving in your little Mazda or your truck, or, your normal size vehicle, but that's not always the best for these larger vehicles. So because of that, we allow for you to customize the locations of customized locations that you go to. We can allow you to enter things like entry gates and exit gates, and not only entry gates or exit gates, but also what type of vehicles are allowed through those gates, so that when your vehicles are routed to those locations, they're actually not routed to the middle of a location. They're routed to the correct gate, so they don't have to worry about maybe driving another mile to the other side of a building to get to the entrance. And that's just wasting, maybe another 15 minutes of time. These locations, we have a database of 2 million locations in North America that we've already made these polygon geofences for. And then on top of that, we have about 200,000 locations that's constantly growing. It's closer to 300,000 now, actually, with these entry and exit gates already coded into them. So we've done some digging into these locations, and we found that not all commercial data is the same. Some people, locations in your database might be off by a couple miles or a half a mile or a quarter of a mile. And a lot of times zip codes that are in databases that a lot of fleets are using are off by, we have 20 plus miles here, but I've seen up to 50 sometimes. So this allows you to make sure that you have confidence in the data, and not only confidence in that data, but that confidence that your vehicles are going to be as efficient as possible when routing to it. If you are routing maybe smaller delivery vehicles, they can use a specific gate, but then these larger vehicles need to go to another gate on the backside of the building. And we're able to take that information and code it right directly into CoPilot. Again, these are all things that the drivers are going to take advantage of right away, and they won't even really notice that's happening on the back end, but you'll be controlling them from your back office as an admin. The next, and it's kind of an expansion on that second point, is site guidance to the last mile. So we found that a lot of drivers get frustrated as they get towards the end of their trip, because as they get to the end of the trip, that's also when there's the biggest chance the navigation is going to fail them. That's when there's might be more roads and decisions to make. That might also be in roads that are slower, so they're having to start and stop while also looking for the entrance to a location. It's just more of a stressful situation for the drivers, and we wanted to try and help with that. So to do that, we've taken that custom information that we were able to code in our previous point and have that information implemented directly into CoPilot. So as those drivers are going to a route, they are routed to not only that correct gate, but they're also routed to the correct pathing. Whether maybe you don't want them to make a left turn into an entrance gate, we can actually allow the pathing to be set within CoPilot so that they're routed on that final mile, the exact road that you would like them to. And on top of that, we can also route them inside the site. So when they break that geofence, where are they supposed to go? Where are the docks at? This is all information that you can create from your back office, or in some situations also use our data. Or the third option is to take our data and add your own data on top of it so that you can have a custom version of what we've already created for you. And that can be anything. That can be maybe a comment to the driver that gets spoken through their navigation as they approach that says the code to the gate is 1234, or the docks to the building are located on the back side. This information can get read to the drivers to help them through that decision making. And at the end of the day, try and make things more efficient and try and reduce those phone calls and those wait periods when the drivers are either picking up or dropping off. And here's just a quick example of what some of those notes might look like. In this situation, in the picture here, we have a quick note that says the drivers aren't allowed to park overnight here. And like I said, that can be anything. That can be the contact that they need to reach to. That can be maybe some information on the amenities. The bathrooms are located in the blue building. Any of that information that helps the drivers kind of just have a better day to day is a good situation to use these tools, in my opinion. The fourth one is our dynamic ETAs and what happens when those ETAs change, as well as seeing and having visibility into those changes into ETAs. So you guys all are aware, and I don't have to kind of go and go hound on it, but you guys are aware that things change on the road. Sometimes there's accidents, sometimes there's traffic, and CoPilot will take into account both of those things. But also we can take into account of maybe the shipper has made changes to the information. Maybe the driver breaks down. What we can allow is not only for you to have your normal existing communication chain with the driver, but we can also provide you with more details to help along the way to increase that communication chain. The example here is one step of increasing that communication chain is adding that polygon geofence in the entry gate. We might start with a plan of a certain time, but like I said, a driver might run into a traffic accident and have to take an alternate route. What that happens is it changes their ETA. Now, I'm not sure how your fleet handles this today, but on our end now with CoPilot, we would update that ETA for the driver. The driver would have a bar there that says you're due at this time now. Your ETA is you're past your ETA. And that might be a good idea for the driver to reach out to the dispatcher or pass on some information to make sure everyone down the line is, up to date. And then also maybe that traffic delay also affects the driver's HOS breaks, and the driver or clocks and their hours of service, and they had to take an additional break now. And that's additionally going to also mess with the ETA and what that final delivery time is. These are all things that can be tracked from the back office, but also have information in front of the driver so that everyone along the chain, the dispatcher and the driver, all have that information in front of them. Again, just trying to increase that efficiency to make the communication and trying to make that downtime when the driver's not navigating, or maybe when the shipper's expecting and having somebody ready to unload your vehicle, or I'm sorry, your delivery location, trying to break down some of those barriers so that just the overall process is a lot better. And then we get that updated ETA, and then we can pass all that information so everyone's on the same page. I didn't realize there was another click in there, so that was on me. So either way, and one of the last spots that we want to talk about today is our post-trip analysis. So, and not only post-trip analysis, but also mid-trip analysis, and what that can do for you as a fleet, and how those changes to those routes can affect not only the data and the information that you're collecting on your vehicles, but also how to use that data to improve performance of maybe individual drivers, but also your whole fleet. So we also allow for what we call route reporter. And you don't have to worry about that name too much, but essentially what we allow for is for you to track your vehicle, and not only individual vehicles, but your whole fleet, and break down each individual route so that we can take a look at things like the drive time and the distance that CoPilot originally told the driver would be, and what the route was actually done, what those actual miles were, and what the difference between the actual miles and the planned miles look like. We can break that down by each individual route, but we can also break that down by each individual fleet or each individual driver group. Maybe you want to see why your hazmat group's not performing as well as you thought, or why operational costs are up. Maybe it's because they're going out of route more often. We can give you those details and that data to make those decisions. I have fleets that are using this tool for a couple different ways. One fleet off the top of my head is they look at each driver individually, and they look at their out of route miles, they look at their drive times and their distances, and they go to the worst performing drivers to provide them extra driver coaching. How do we prevent some of those missed routes, missed turns? How can we get those out of route miles to be reduced? Because at the end of the day, that increases how much the drivers are driving, and that increases your bottom line as well. And then on the flip side of that, that same fleet is also taking their top performers and rewarding them. Hey, you are one of the most efficient drivers we have. We want to, buy you dinner. We want to give you something extra. It's used in a lot of different ways to not only praise and also help with your fleets increase their efficiency. This is really a great tool because it does allow you to take a look at each individual route as well for individual driver coaching. So if a driver makes a decision, you can look at what that route that was given to them and compare it to the GPS pings that the driver actually did to try and figure out if there was a better way, or maybe the driver made the correct decision. Maybe they got off the highway at the right time to avoid that traffic incident. CoPilot will help with that, but at the end of the day, your drivers are also experts and can make those decisions for themselves. CoPilot's just there to be a tool to help them along and make those decisions easier. And this is one of the last slides I have here, but we have gone through and done some details and some case studies on how much actual savings can a fleet get out of CoPilot. So what we did is we went through and checked out 5 long haul carriers, and that actually worked out to be about 150,000 routes. And we took a look at all their out of route miles, and then also compared that to what the fleet operated on after those miles were actually navigated. So there's a few things to consider here. Firstly, all the routes were planned with PC Miler. PC Miler uses the same miles as CoPilot. So that means the trips that we were actually sending to these drivers originally are really efficient and are as efficient as possible from our data, an industry standard data that's been around for 30 plus years. But also there's still going to be events that happen after that route's sent. And if we can reduce those situations from coming up with CoPilot, then we can even have an increased amount of reduction of out of route miles. So what we found is that there's a reduction of about 2% or a little rounded up of out of route miles by using CoPilot. Again, these are already efficient routes that situations arise during those routes, and CoPilot was able to save them time and money. We can also save plenty of hours, and time, again, is money. So we're able to reduce at 3,000 hours plus per month for each of the fleets of drive time. And at the end of the day, that ended up being a savings of over $2 million for these fleets. Now, each individual fleet's different. Every, shorter run fleets and long haul fleets are different, but at the end of the day, every commercial navigation tool needs to provide our professional drivers with the drive times, the distances, and the accurate ETAs. And if we can help them through that, whether they are that long haul or if they are that final mile or local delivery, CoPilot's able to handle it. So that's kind of the end of what I had here. Lisa, I am good to pass it over to you, and I'm happy to stay around and answer as many questions as I can.
Awesome, awesome. Just back to that slide. Could you flip back one, Matt? What I like about this is that, I mean, the numbers speak volumes. Doesn't matter what fleet size, doesn't matter what fleet configuration, numbers do speak volumes here. The averages, the savings in mileage, the savings in beyond just these numbers, the intangible benefits, drivers are happier. Drivers are less stressed. These are things that you can't quantify so much. But when, I know I was catching up on some of your reading online, and there were some stats in the latest blog about stress-free. Drivers like using this. They don't have to worry about the routing and because accidents happen and traffic happens, and the fact that the drivers are stress-free and they can focus on doing what they're hired to do, which is just drive. This becomes a tool to help retain drivers. Is a perspective that I have after going through this. Couple of questions that are popping in here. Let's start with this one here, and it has to do with the commercial places and the types of attributes that are captured. I know you mentioned 2 million plus locations and data points, and you mentioned also the entry and exit gates, but what else? What other types of attributes are captured?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple different layers to our places data. And this is a really good question, because this is something that I think is incredibly important in our industry right now, where not all locations are built the same across all the different tools that users might be having. So what these locations are the locations that commercial vehicles go to most often. So firstly, these are going to be things like ports, rest areas, service centers, points of interest along a highway, areas that our drivers are going to every single day. Those locations are put into polygon geofences. So that means mostly we don't just put a circle around a location, because that causes some issues. If a location is next to a highway and a driver is driving down that highway and they break that circle, they might get a ping to the back office that says, hey, they're there. And that, but they have another 20 minutes to get off the highway, go around and get to the location. So those polygon geofences are a big deal. On top of that, we also have that entry and exit gate information coded into some of those locations. And I welcome people to, if they want to take a look at some of these locations, I have plenty of stats and figures that I'll share with the DiCAN team to share. But additional information is things like operating hours, when the location's open, maybe what the amenities are there, if they do have public bathrooms or laundry services, or if it's a food, the operating hours. I think I said that already, but if not, I'm going to say it again because it's important. We don't want them showing up when the place is closed. And then on top of that, you can also code in your own custom data. So if there are specific things, maybe you have a customer that's always a pain, and whenever you go in the wrong entrance, they yell at you, and you want to put that to the driver, you can do that as well and put your own custom message. So it's not just based on what we decide it's important. You can also base it on what you decide is important as well.
Mm-hmm. And how about just another question here on that topic? So does the mapping account for road restrictions like avoidance of gravel roads, or any sort of like provincial or DOT regulations for half load road restrictions, things like that, you're nodding your head, I see.
Yeah.
So you're
I was waiting for you to, I was waiting for the period or the question mark. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so there is a lot of that goes involved to CoPilot. So at its core, CoPilot has a couple different routes that will give you for a normal calculation or a distance calculation. So let's just say we're going from, I'm in Philadelphia, we're here in Philadelphia, we're going to go up to Toronto. There's a couple different ways to get there. Firstly, we can provide you with a shortest route, which that's literally going to give you the least amount of miles or kilometers that's possible. The second option we could give you is a fastest route, which is the least amount of drive time. And now those two might be the same, but they're not always the same. And the third one, and I think it's the one that should be most used by our fleets, is a practical route. So we take account on those practical routes, not only the distance calculation, not only the drive time calculation, but we also take account of things like difficult turns, tight, and that would be something like a tight turn, or, making sure drivers aren't going and pulling crazy U-turns in these large vehicles, because again, there's just more stress on top of the drivers. We also do have a preference to staying on the highways. So if a driver could get off an exit of a highway, maybe a stop earlier, and they can cut through a city, does that really save them enough time to make it worth it while dealing with the headaches of going through a city? Or maybe it is beneficial just to stay on that highway and just continue on, and maybe it adds another 30 seconds, but you are also decreasing that stress. And part of that, you mentioned gravel roads, and that's one of those things as well, is where we will prefer non-gravel roads. Now there's situations where gravel roads are needed, but if you're just doing a general route, you're not going to be put on those gravel roads, because we're going to keep these trucks preferably on the highway, preferably on paved roads, and preferably on, roads that are in our state and national networks.
Okay. And then just going back to the notifications, the automated notifications that you had there towards the end of the slides, those notifications, I think, yeah, you just going back there.
Yeah, let's see. This one maybe?
Yes. So like you started talking about the types of notifications. Can you expand on that a little bit? Like, obviously, to have the alert come directly to the driver without having to search for the information, that's a huge benefit. But what else can you comment about the automated notifications feature?
Sure. So there's a couple different versions, a couple different ways that we do notifications. So firstly, from a driver perspective, we want to notify the drivers as little as possible. Again, we want them to focus on driving. So that means that if they're driving in a vehicle that's, say, 13 feet tall, we're not going to notify them that the bridge in front of them is 13.5 foot tall, because they're already lower. They don't have to worry about it. They're already set in CoPilot as a 13-foot vehicle. So we're not going to notify them for that. Now, if that same driver approaches, say, a bridge that's 12 foot tall, now we have a dangerous situation on our hands, and now we have to notify that driver that there is a bridge ahead of them that is lower than they are, and we need to prevent that situation. So that's just a quick example of when we'll try and get in front of a driver only when it's necessary. We don't want to notify them unless it is. So that's why a lot of the customization that we can do as well in CoPilot is, or a lot of the safety features that we have are customizable. Maybe you don't want your drivers being notified every time they go over the speed limit, and you want them to only be notified when they're 15 miles per hour over the speed limit. And maybe that warning doesn't need to be an audible one and just a visual one. So we can customize those for the drivers, but at the end of the day, we're trying to make it as little amount of screen time as possible. Now, for the back office, they are not driving, so they can get some of these details as well, and it's not affecting them as much. So in the day-to-day, in our route reporter, which I was mentioning, that's our tool where we're able to take a look at a route, see the outer route miles as opposed to what the planned miles were. We can also set it up so that you'll get notifications when that vehicle goes out of your corridor, out of the route, by whatever you decide is the correct size. I have fleets that maybe when a driver leaves a route by more than a mile, or maybe more than half a mile, they get a notification. That notification can go to the back office, so that your back office, whether it's your dispatcher or just somebody who manages your fleet safety, can get that notification and decide if they need to reach out to the driver to make sure that they're okay. A lot of times it could be the driver is just going and, he needed to take an hour's of service break, and his favorite restaurant's just a little bit further off the road than normal. And that's fine. But also, maybe drivers are just making wrong turns and they think they know better than the navigation tool. And you should be notified about that too, because you want to make sure your drivers are using this tool as correctly and efficiently as possible. So those outer route and those rejoining of the route notifications can also go to the back office.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. These tools are in place for both front office, back office, right? For the drivers and the administration. At the end of the day, a fleet manager's job is really complicated. We have a lot to do. And I say we because at DiCAN, we are fleet managers as well. We have a fleet of technicians out on the road every day. And so, it's tools like this that make us all better at our jobs and give us a competitive advantage as well. So I think with that, I don't see any more questions coming in private chat or in the group chat. So I think we'll wrap it up here, Matt. Thank you so much for presenting today, for being with us at Fleet Street. Awesome content, tons of great value. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who joined us on the call virtually. We appreciate you, and we appreciate the time that you've taken today during your lunch hour. So thanks so much. Check your inboxes for a link to our speed survey. It's going to come out now for your chance to win a $100 gift card.